I think people's primary concern is if the Supreme Court truly does end up overturning Roe v. Wade, what can we do? Now, we know we can get into the streets and we can hold our signs, and that's all very necessary and good. But from a legal perspective, people are saying the Biden administration has been looking into issuing some sort of executive orders, what kind of authority they have there. And I was reading this week that according to mainstream outlets, it's widely believed that the single biggest step the administration could take is to focus on something known as preemption, which from my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's the basis of it is federal law sort of trumps state law. And if that's the case, the White House could specifically possibly use a decision made by the FDA, I'm reading off my notes here, reached last December to allow patients up to 10 weeks of pregnancy to receive a prescription for abortion pills by mail through a telehealth service without having to make any sort of in-person visit to a healthcare provider. So theoretically, outlets are saying Biden could sign an executive order requiring states abide by that FDA rule based on the reasoning that federal law would trump state law. And specifically, they've referenced a sort of precedent for this. In 2014, a U.S. District Court judge ruled that Massachusetts could not ban an opioid painkiller because that had already been approved by the FDA. So the FDA's decision then overruled the state attempt at a state ban. So tell me, that's what some of the news outlets are saying. The Biden administration has said that it's looking into executive order to try to bypass any decision by the Supreme Court. Sounds like a sticky situation because people are going to claim, well, the whole point of the Supreme Court is to put a check on the balance of power there. And if the president's going to do this, et cetera, can the Biden administration do this specifically? Can they possibly do anything else? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So let me start there and then work back around to what we can do. So we'll start with what the administration could potentially do. So this preemption thing, and I'm getting up to speed on it myself, but it seems to be rooted in the FDA's authority to approve drugs and medication. And so I think if I'm understanding the argument that's being advanced in the press, the idea here is that FDA's authority, which has been delegated to them by Congress to approve drugs, should therefore trump, this decision. Well, it's not even just a decision because we have to back into what the decision is. The decision is upholding a Mississippi law. So I guess the idea here is, sure, the Mississippi law would be upheld by the Supreme Court decision, but the drugs that had been approved by the FDA would still have to be made available. I mean, that's certainly an argument that could be made. And look, I think it's throw everything at the wall time. And it has been for a long time. And we're not really seeing, at least in my opinion, right? We're not really seeing this administration throw everything at the wall. They're so worried about whether or not they have the power to do things or how things are going to play that they're just kind of creating all this oxygen for fascism to breathe. Mm-hmm. And that's really disturbing. So, look, I mean, should they try it? Yeah, they should try it. Is there a risk that decision ends up in front of this same Supreme Court, which, again, in my opinion, probably the opinion of other people as well, makes its decisions not often grounded in solid jurisprudential philosophy, but in pure ideology, naked ideology. And so, we could sit here and say, well, this is totally rational. This makes sense. This is well within separation of powers doctrine. This is totally fine under federal preemption doctrine. And Clarence Thomas is going to come up with some kind of crazy reason why it's fine to just do an end run around all that. So I don't know if that works, but I think it's worth a try. I also think it's worth a try having Congress pass a law that enshrines Roe. And that should have happened a long time ago. We've had 50 years to do this. The Democrats had a filibuster-proof supermajority in 2009. This was not on the agenda. They could get around the filibuster tomorrow and do this. It would just mean getting tough with two recalcitrant members of the Senate, the Democratic senatorial delegation, and bring some pressure on those two that we haven't seen. Look, I'm not a big fan of LBJ in a lot of regards, but I will say he would not have sat back and just taken some of the stuff that's come out of Manchin and Sinema. There's absolutely no universe. And we elected Joe Biden because he was this deal maker. He was this guy who knew how the Senate worked.
He was the new FDR. is what I heard.
FDR. Yeah, and even if he didn't have FDR's politics, we were to believe that he was this master deal maker. He knew the Senate, he knew who the players were, he had good relationships with people across the ideological spectrum, and there was one guy who could make the deals, and it was Joe Biden. He's not making the deals. I mean, he's just sort of fallen flat on that. So yeah, I mean, and then so that this transitions into then what happens, right? Congress passes a law. We codify Roe. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen in the near term, but even if it does, you look at the language in this leaked Dobbs opinion, and again, we don't have the final opinion yet. All we have is the leak. Some of this language could change, but we have language in there that, in my opinion, opens the door to personhood for fetuses. If that happens, then even federal legislation that mandates access to abortion would be invalidated because it would be a violation of the personhood rights of these fetuses. So we're really playing around with some dangerous stuff.